Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Om Shri Mahaganapataye Namaha Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Asmad Gurubhyo Namaha श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानामालयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः ओम श्री मेधा दक्षिणामूर्ति स्वामिने नमः। ओम सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरिः ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओम। ओम पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्धदामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्र रुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थितदद्गतेन मनसां पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तन्न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः। Namaste once again everyone.
Namaskaram Guruji.
Namaskaram. So, in the last class, I think we completed the study of the context for the teaching of Bhagavad Gita. With the last sloka, which is the 10th sloka, which was a sloka in the rendered by Sanjaya. So with that, we completed the background of Bhagavad Gita teaching that, okay, by Lord Krishna. And from those slokas, from the first chapter and the 10 slokas of the second chapter, there are two key takeaways for us. The first is that raga, or attachment as we described it, or obsession with people and things, invariably leads to shoka or grief, which in turn leads to moha, delusion and confusion. But we must understand this statement correctly. It is not that all desires lead to attachment. To have desires is a very natural phenomenon, not only for human beings, but also we see that in some animals. Desire for comfort, physical comfort, is something every animal is driven by. So the Shastra doesn't scoff at desires. But what the Shastra wants to emphasize is that we should manage our desires rather than the desires driving our lives. Because we will have a lot of desires in our day-to-day life. Some desires may be fulfilled and some may not. Most of the times we will not bother about those which are not fulfilled. We will move on with our life. On the other hand, there are times when we have an intense desire for something which, if not fulfilled, would lead to a strong reaction in us like sorrow, mental stress, depression, etc. And these desires, they are called binding desires. Why binding? Because these desires bind us to samsara, which creates a bondage, and that bondage consequently causes this grief. So such binding or obsessive desires are what is called raga in the Vedantic terminology. This we should understand very carefully. No Shastra says that you should not have desires. So once we have such obsessive desires in the form of raga, we become emotional victims of such desires, which eventually leads to shoka or grief. And when the grief becomes overwhelming, it results in moha or delusion or confusion. Therefore, once the raga virus enters our system, it overrides all our system capabilities. It deactivates the processor intellect and makes us incapacitated to act. And that is why the Shastra emphasizes on keeping the raga under check, especially for spiritual growth. And of course, it's not a very direct, but certain examples we know of classic examples of such obsessive desires leading to grief, which are, we see the stories of Romeo, Juliet, and in our own country, like Laila, Majnu, Heer, Ranja, etc. Every culture has its own version of such stories. And all those stories, even though they are very entertaining, tragic stories and all good for making films and all that and earn a lot of money, all these stories highlight that when we have an obsessive desire, the result is only grief and even sometimes destruction of life. Therefore, this chain of raga, shoka, moha is the root of all our problems in life. And as it happens, unfortunately, only few of us understand this connection. And those who don't understand, they keep wondering, why am I suffering in my life? Why do I have so much grief in my life? All these, questions keep arising. And then convenient way, blame God, blame Ishvara. He is very unfair. He is giving me all these sufferings. So this is the first takeaway. The second takeaway is that once we have actually got this problem of shoka and moha, what do? There, the Shastra says, you have to undertake a 4-stage process. First stage is you have to discover the problem. You have to understand that there is a problem with me. And this problem is a problem of raga, shoka, moha. This is a samsara problem I am facing. Yeah, many people don't even know that this is their problem. So that's the first discovery of the problem is the first stage. Then in the second stage, one should have a desire to solve the problem. Unless you have a desire to solve the problem, you cannot go further. Rather, you would have discovered the problem and remaining there only. So once you have the desire to solve the problem, that I need to address this issue which I am afflicted with, the third stage automatically is we will all first try to solve the problem on our own. But the samsara's problem, it cannot be solved on their own. Being within the samsara, we cannot solve the problems. Because we are the problem and we cannot be, we have to understand that the solution is also us. But in finding a solution, we may have our own limitations. And those limitations will give rise to a situation of helplessness. I have this problem. I want to solve this problem, but I don't know how to go about it. I am feeling very helpless. So then we come to the fourth stage, which is discovering a guide, discovering a guru who can help me in solving the problem. Having confidence in that person, or it need not be a person, even in a system, that my problem can be solved only through this medium. Once that is done, then surrender to that system or the person or the guru and leave the rest for the guru to guide you to come out of this problem. Now, the first three stages are somewhat in our hands. Discovery of the problem, desire to solve the problem, and also trying our own methods and discovering our helplessness. That is, we cannot solve the problem. Our means for solving the problem are limited. So still these three are somewhat in our hands. But the fourth stage, which is discovering a guru, finding a system, finding somebody to guide us, is not fully in our hands. For that, we require a lot of grace of Ishvara to get a person who is capable of guiding us and in whom we can repose confidence. In fact, Acharyas say that once you have a very strong desire to solve the problem, the cosmic order, the cosmic forces will make sure that the right person comes in contact with you to guide you. This is the beauty of the way the entire cosmic order works. And cosmic order is what we call Ishvara. And this has been acknowledged by even Western authors. So, as it happens, Arjuna went through all these stages in the first chapter and the first slokas, 10 slokas of the second chapter, and has now finally surrendered to Lord Krishna with the words, Tvam prapannam shadhimam. I surrender to you, please teach me what I should do. I am confused. Please teach me. So now Lord Krishna starts the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita with a very profound statement. The first sloka, very profound sloka. I will read. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Ashocyananda Shochastvam Prajnavadanscha Bhashase Gatasu Nagatasunscha Nanushocanti Panditah. The Anvaya is Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Tvam Anvashocha hai Ashocyan Bhashase Pragyavadancha Panditah na Anushocanti Gatasun Agatasuncha. This is the Anvaya of this sloka. We'll see the word meaning. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. The Lord Krishna said, Bhagavan said, Tvam, you, Anvashocha hai, you are grieving. Hey Arjuna, you are grieving. Ashocyan, for those who should not be grieved for. They don't deserve to be grieved for. Cha, at the same time, Bhashase Pragyavadhan, you are speaking the words of wise people. Panditaha, wise men, na anushochanti, do not grieve. Gatasun, for the dead, cha, and agatasun, for the living. This is the word meaning. So Bhagavan is saying here, you are grieving for those who should not be grieved for. At the same time, you are speaking the words of wise people. Hey Arjuna, wise men do not grieve for the dead or for the living. This is the meaning of this shloka in a very short, very compact, or what's a simple way. And as I said, this is a very important shloka of Gita. Because this is an important verse, because in this verse, Krishna condenses the entire Gita Shastra. The whole Gita Shastram is, put in a capsule form in this one shloka. And in this shloka, Bhagavan is connecting the problem of sorrow with ignorance and removal of that sorrow to knowledge. Ashocyan is the first word. It means shochitum ayogyan. Those who do not deserve the grief or sorrow. Those who should not be grieved for. Ashocyan. And if you know the last sloka of Bhagavad Gita teaching, not the sloka Bhagavad Gita as a whole, the last sloka of Bhagavad Gita teaching is the 66th sloka. Anybody knows that sloka?
Sarvadharman parityajya. Tyajya mamekam sharanam vraja. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma shucha. Thank you.
What is the last word?
Ma shucha.
So this is the last word of Bhagavan's teaching in the 66th sloka of the 18th chapter. So the entire Bhagavad Gita teaching by Lord Krishna starts with Ashocyan and ends with Ma Shuchaha. So if we just take these three words, the whole Bhagavad Gita teaching can be put in these three words, Ashocyan Ma Shuchaha. Do not grieve for something which does not deserve any grief, which should not be grieved for. This is the whole crux of Bhagavad Gita. And once we understand this, by going through all these 18 chapters, 17 now, what first chapter is gone, we will also gain the same knowledge, the same maturity, spiritual maturity, which Arjuna gained in the end of the 18th chapter. And what Bhagavan wants to say is that our sorrow is because of our delusion. Not knowing the truth about oneself and also the world, we have this sorrow or grief. Because what happens is the ignorance about oneself and the world creates certain notions, certain wrong thinking. And this wrong thinking finally causes sorrow. So if you want to remove sorrow, we have to reverse the process. We have to remove the wrong notions and the wrong thinking which is causing this sorrow. How can we do that? By getting the right understanding. And what is right understanding? Removal of wrong understanding. Removal of sorrow. And that is what the entire Gita teaching is. So, Ashocyan ma shuchaha. Do not grieve for something that does not deserve to be grieved for. Now, the natural question is, how is everything Ashocyan? How is everything not worthy of grieving? And this is the whole teaching of the Gita. Every situation that we face in our life requires a response, not grieving. If something can be done, there's some noise coming from the background. Okay. Mute all. I will do. Okay. So as I was saying, if something can be done, do it. If nothing can be done, just accept it. Grieving is not going to, or getting into sorrow situation is not going to change anything. And this acceptance is possible only when you become acceptable to yourself. And by revealing the nature of Atma, the self, as limitless, Bhagavan is making us to see that I am limitless and therefore I am acceptable. And when I accept myself, everything becomes acceptable. So, as Pujya Swamiji says, basically our problem is centered on I within inverted commas. Sorrow is not centered on outside. Grief is not centered on outside. The problem of grief and sorrow, they are all centered on myself. And when we correct our sight, when we correct this misunderstanding, everything looks very clear. Vedanta does that. Gita does that. And of course, as I said earlier, up to the 10th sloka of the second chapter, that is the 57 slokas, Adi Shankara, whom I will, wherever I am going to refer to him, occasionally I will refer, because he has written a profound bhashyam on Bhagavad Gita, and there are a lot of things to be learned from that bhashyam. But since this is not a bhashyam class, I am not going to take you all through the bhashyam. I will stick to the moolam only, but I will be borrowing some quotes, some sound bites, as they call it, from Adi Shankara's bhashyam. And whenever I will be referring to Adi Shankara, I will refer to him as Bhagavan Bhashyakara. So whenever I refer as Bhagavan Bhashyakara, you must understand that I am referring to Adi Shankara. And also I am referring to the bhashyam written by him. So Adi Shankara or Bhagavan Bhashyakara did not write the commentary for this first 57 slokas. But this does not mean that it was not important or that he forgot to write. In fact, his approach was, he was not so much interested in commenting upon those details because most of them are self-explanatory. What is the name of the conch of this person? What is the name of the bow of that person and all that? Nothing to do with Gita teaching. But what he does, Adi Shankara, is before he starts the commentary on from the 11th sloka onwards, he gives a brief summary of what has happened in the first 57 slokas, which of course we have seen it in detail. We don't need to go into that commentary. So we must not think that Adi Shankara doesn't think that these 57 slokas are useless. They are very useful to set the entire context. That is an introduction for this teaching, which is beginning from the 11th sloka of the second chapter. Therefore, as I said, he does not ignore those slokas. He actually summarizes the contents of those slokas before starting the commentary on from the 11th sloka onwards. So coming back, Ashocyan Ma Shuchaha is the teaching of this entire Gita Shastra. What is implied in this sloka is ignorance is the cause of all human problems. And by ignorance, we are not talking about any laukika ignorance, like ignorance of any subject matter. It is ignorance of the self. This ignorance here means self-ignorance. So self-ignorance, the ignorance of the true nature of ourself is the cause of all human problems. And therefore, self-knowledge is the only solution for all human problems. This is the Gita Sara. This is the essence of the entire Gita. If we put it in Sanskrit, Atma Ajnanam Samsara Karanam, Atma Jnanam Moksha Karanam. Atma Jnanam is the cause of samsara, and Atma Ajnanam is the cause of samsara. Atma Jnanam is the cause of moksha. Moksha means freedom from bondage of samsara. And this key element or key statement alone, Krishna is going to elaborate in this entire Gita Shastra. And that is why at the end of each chapter, we get what? Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam. Brahma Vidya means self-knowledge, Atma Vidya, which is the central theme of the entire Bhagavad Gita teaching. No doubt, of course, many other topics are discussed in the Gita like Karma Yoga, Upasana, Japa, Puja, Dhyanam, etc. Including, the three gunas, Trigunatmika, Maya, everything, a lot of topics are discussed there. But they're all discussed for us to understand the entire truth or reality of this creation. They all support all these discussions in all other topics. They support the central theme of Atma Vidya. And how does Krishna convey this idea? He presents it beautifully in this very first inspiring verse of the teaching. The main sentence in this is Panditaha na anushochanti. Panditaha refers to wise people. People who have got self-knowledge. The word Pandita is derived from Panda asti yesham te Panditaha. Panda means wisdom in Sanskrit. And not just any wisdom, knowledge about the self. And in his in Bhashyam, Bhagavan Bhashyakara quotes a verse from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad to derive this interpretation of Panda. That's why when we study the Bhashyam, a lot more we gain. How do you say Panda is? From where do you get Panda means wise people? It is, he will quote from Upanishad. This is where it says Panda means a wise people, a person with a self-knowledge. So here Pandita has to be interpreted, not any Pandit. We have got so many Pandits in India. This word Pandit is a very common name. Even people who have no self-knowledge are also called Pandita. Right, starting from Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, we have got so many Pandits. So Pandita does not mean that a person with knowledge. Pandita actually, according to Vedic terminology, means a person with self-knowledge. That is why Krishna uses the word Pandita in the very first sloka of his teaching. So Pandita, wise people, na anushochanti, they do not grieve after anything. If wisdom is there, grief is not there. And the corollary is that if grief is there, wisdom is not there. At least temporarily, till the wisdom comes. So wise people do not grieve, and those who grieve are not wise people. Na anushochanti. And here we must understand sorrow or shoka does not mean physical pain. Physical pain may be there or not there. That doesn't mean that one is a wise person and not a wise person. So it has nothing to do, sorrow or grief, to do with physical pain. What is this sorrow which is talked about in the Shastra? Sorrow is a discomfort with oneself. It's a state of being uneasy with oneself. It's a very unnatural situation, rather. Because as per the Shastras, our nature is eternally be happy. We are Ananda Swarupa. So Ananda Swarupa is our natural state. But when we feel sorrowful, when we experience an uneasiness with ourselves, when we feel I am not okay, that it gives rise to sorrow. On the contrary, things may be all right or may not be all right. People may respect me, may not respect me. People may talk to me sweetly, not talk to me sweetly, or even abuse me. But under all circumstances, I am okay. This is the absence of sorrow. Therefore, this sorrow will not be there in wise people who understand what is the nature of this sorrow. So if wisdom is there, grief will not be there. That means what? Knowledge is the means for removing sorrow. And that leads us to understand that if knowledge removes the sorrow, grief must be born of ignorance. Where knowledge and ignorance are opposite to each other. Where knowledge removes ignorance, and as a consequence, ignorance and ignorance-born products are also removed by knowledge. So therefore, by following this logic, we can conclude by inference that sorrow must be born of ignorance, ajnanam. And if we further analyze this idea, we will find that sorrow is caused by attachment alone with people and things. When that attachment is not there, what happens to those peoples or things? It doesn't cause any sorrow in us. We may be attached to our possessions like our car, our house and all. In a rainy season, if our house is leaking heavily, which is quite common in Bombay, we will have sorrow. Oh my God, my house is leaking. Whereas if some other person's house is leaking, will it cause any sorrow to us? We will have some sympathy. Oh, poor guy, he has not done his house properly. That's why it is leaking. Similarly, our car, suppose we have a car, beautiful car, new car we purchased, there's an attachment with that car. And suddenly we find that one morning that there is a big scratch in that new car. Crosses grief. My God, new car I got just last week. And some fellow has actually, spoiled this car. Because that attachment in my car, mamakaram is there in that. Whereas if the same thing is happening to somebody else's car, will we feel any grief? Again, we may have some sympathy. Oh, see, the new car is bought. Unlucky fellow, somebody has done the damage to that. So the point I am trying to emphasize is this attachment is caused, or this sorrow is caused only because of the attachment with people and things. And what is the nature of this attachment? This attachment comes because of our superimposition of a certain value or a certain security on people and things. That is because I am not finding myself to be happy enough, secure enough. I find myself to be inadequate, and so I am searching for adequacy outside. When I don't have a car at all, or when my car is old and is giving me a lot of problem, I find myself inadequate. So I search for a solution outside, how I can actually, feel adequate. I will dispose of this car and buy a new car, which will at least not give me trouble for the next couple of years. So we attach a certain value to that new car. And when that value we superimpose on that particular object, and when that object gets into some sort of a problem, sorrow comes up. So it is not because the car is damaged that the sorrow comes. It is because we have superimposed a certain value on that car from our own side, and that erosion of that value is what causes us sorrow. And it all stems from the feeling of inadequacy, not accepting myself as I am. And why do we superimpose? That is our samskara. We have been doing it after birth after birth after birth. So I superimpose this happiness or security on people and things. And the superimposition causes attachment, and attachment causes sorrow. And all this stems from the sense of inadequacy. Now, if this inadequacy or the sense of inadequacy is a fact, is the reality, then I have to forget about freedom from sorrow, forget about freedom from bondage, forget about moksha, everything, because it's a reality. If the inadequacy is intrinsic to me, I can never be free from it. It can never be removed. Because if that is my nature, how can it change my nature? Excuse me. So we have to question whether this inadequacy is intrinsic to me or not. And when we look for an answer, we find that Shastra does talk about freedom. And when we actually contemplate on this issue, we actually introspect on this issue, we find that once in a while, we get a glimpse of being an adequate person, a non-demanding person. Taking the example of the car. When we get a new car and it is parked outside our whatever it is, our house, don't we feel very happy? Why do we feel that happiness? Because the previous car, which was giving us all sorts of trouble, that was creating a sense of inadequacy in us. And when we acquired a new car, so that inadequacy gave rise to a demand for a new car. And once that demand was met by buying a new car or acquiring a new car, for a temporary period, that inadequacy is gone. The demand is gone. We become an adequate person as regards that car. In so many other matters, we may still be inadequate. But with regard to the issue of the car, we become adequate person, a non-demanding person. And therefore, it gives us happiness. And therefore, it also gives us some hope that adequacy is possible. So the only possibility which can give us hope, which is supported by the Shastra, is that adequacy is by nature, and the inadequacy that I have been taking, thinking about myself that I'm inadequate is a notion, is a mistake. I do not know by nature which is adequate, which is limitless, and I have been, because of a wrong understanding or a misunderstanding or non-understanding or lack of understanding, I have been taking myself to be limited. I have been taking myself to be inadequate. And that has led to all these sorrow and ignorance. And it is this ignorance is what Shastra calls ajnanam. So then what happens? Since I do not know what really I am, but I know that I am, I exist, so I take something else as myself. That is what is happening. So due to my ignorance, I take this body, mind, sense complex as myself. And by its nature, the body, mind, sense complex is limited. It is limited both in terms of both in terms of time and space. Isn't it? This body, mind, sense complex has a date of birth and the date of death. Limited by time. This body, mind, sense complex, if it is sitting here, it cannot be somewhere else. Limited by space. So because I mistake this body, mind, sense complex as myself, I take this as myself, I consider myself to be limited. Because the body, mind, sense complex can never be perfect. It can never be inadequate. As we grow older and older, we can see each and every part is started giving us trouble. Something is missing, this deficiency, vitamin D deficiency, this deficiency, that, so many phosphorus deficiency. All they start, building up. They are all inadequacies only in the body, mind, sense complex. So that is limited. So that is why when we identify ourselves with this body, mind, sense complex, we also take ourselves to be limited. We also take ourselves to be inadequate. And once there is this sense of limitation, then what happens? The problems of superimposition, attachment, etc. happens, which eventually leads to sorrow. So we must be able to trace this entire, flow. How we get sorrow? What is the seed for us to sorrow, feel sorrowful or have this grief? Once we understand this entire process, we will understand this word pandita hai. So all these ideas are conveyed in this word pandit, or in the sentence pandita hai na anushochanti. The wise people, the people who have the self-knowledge, who know their true self, who have got this Atma Jnanam, do not grieve at all. Therefore, who is a Pandita? An Atma Jnani is a Pandita. And these wise people, na anushochanti, they do not grieve at all. So now, having said that, if wise people do not grieve, and Arjuna is profusely grieving, therefore Arjuna is what? He is otherwise, isn't it? Arjuna is ignorant. See how beautifully Krishna handles this situation. By this one word, Pandita na anushochanti. He is telling Arjuna without directly criticizing him on his face. Krishna is conveying through implication, hey Arjuna, you are ignorant, you are in the dark, you are not a Pandita. You are Pandita anushochanti, but you are grieving. So you are not a Pandita. And it is not only Arjuna, Krishna is telling the entire humanity. If only we have got an open mind to accept this. So what is the litmus test? Are you grieving? Yes. Then you are also in the same category as Arjuna. It's a universal question and a universal answer. So if anybody complains, I am sorrowful, I am depressed, I am upset, I do not have peace, If anybody tells their problem is problem of self-ignorance, and if ignorance is the cause of sorrow, then what is the remedy? There is only one remedy for ignorance. Ignorance cannot be removed by going to a doctor or a psychiatrist or even going to a temple. The only remedy for ignorance is jnana, knowledge. For example, if there is darkness in the room, and if we want to remove the darkness, what is the remedy for this? For that, how many remedies can be there? There can be only one remedy. We have to bring light into the room, isn't it? To remove the darkness. Similarly, jnanat eva kaivalyam. Only jnanam can remove ignorance and can help you in the moksha marga. Any karmas, any amount of actions you do will not give moksha. Because during Adi Shankara's time, there were many people who used to believe that karmas can give moksha. You do all punya karmas, then it will give you moksha. Now, Bhagavan Bhashyakara asks this question: can any amount of action remove ignorance? If you are ignorant of yourself, any amount of karmas you do, will that remove that ignorance? The answer is no. In fact, the karmas that we do, they actually go on to increase our ignorance of our true nature. So any number of karmas cannot remove ignorance. Meditation cannot remove ignorance. Japa cannot remove ignorance. Therefore, the only remedy for removal of ignorance is jnanam. And that Bhagavan Krishna emphasizes that in the first sloka itself. Panditaha na anushochanti. So what is the message to Arjuna? Hey Arjuna, you also become a pandita. You also become a wise person. And then question is, okay, wise people do not grieve, but with regard to what? With regard to whom? Krishna says, Gatasun, Agatasuncha. Gatasun literally means the people who have left their body, whose prana has gone, departed souls. So wise people do not grieve after who are departed or who are, you can say, dead. Then Agatasuncha, they do not grieve for the living ones also. These are the only two possibilities, isn't it? Because all our worries, if we see, are centered around either the living ones or the dead ones. All our worries are not necessarily persons. It could be even possessions rather. If we have a lot of money, our worry is, I should not lose this. If it is lost, our worry is, oh my God, I have lost it, isn't it? Some people are so possessive about certain things, and it could even be a small toothbrush which they use every day, morning or at night. If the toothbrush is missing, they get worried. My God, I know I kept this toothbrush here. It is now missing. Especially when they go to somebody else's house and all that, and they keep the toothbrush and that is missing, they become worried. My toothbrush is missing. So when we have things, we worry about losing them. And when we lose them, we worry about having lost them. So if things go missing, then also we are worried. So therefore, either we worried about what is gone or worry about what that is not yet gone. So if these two things are taken care of, there is nothing else to worry. And therefore, Krishna enumerates these two, Gatasu, that which is gone, that which is past. And Agatasu means that which is not gone, that means which is at present or in future. So either with regard to the past or with regard to the present or future, na anushochanti, the wise do not grieve. And what about you, Arjuna? You belong to which category? You belong to the category of Ashocyan Anmashocha hai. You grieved for those people who do not deserve any grief. Shochya hai is the one who deserve to be grieved for. Ashochya means those who do not deserve grief or sympathy. That is Duryodhana and company rather. They do not deserve any sympathy because they are all adharmic people. So Ashocyan Anmashocha, you grieved. You were grieving for those people who do not deserve any grief. At the same time, Arjuna, Bhashase Pragyavadhan, you are speaking the words of wise people. You are pretending to be very wise. You are presenting yourself as a wise person by talking about Kulakshaya, Kula Dharma, Varna Sankaraha, etc. All big words. Dharma Shastra words. You're talking about all that and posing as if you are a wise person, but in your action, you are coming out to be a otherwise person. Therefore, you are contradicting yourself. And therefore, your grief, Arjuna, is unjustifiable. And therefore, what you require is jnanam. That knowledge which the panditas, the wise people possess, that knowledge of the self which wise people have, because of which they do not grieve at all. Now the question is, even though we have said that jnanam is self-knowledge, what is that self-knowledge? We have to examine. And why Bhishma, Drona and others are not to be grieved after? So these two big questions still remain after the introduction. Obviously, because that was a very succinct exposition by Bhagavan Krishna. And once we understand the import of that first sloka, these two questions are automatically, naturally will come in our mind. What are the two questions? What is this self-knowledge? What is the nature of this self-knowledge? And why are Bhishma, Drona and others are not to be grieved for or grieved after? An answer to these questions, Bhagavan Krishna, as an answer, he talks about the nature of Atma in the next sloka. I will read. Natvevaham jatu nasam natvam neme janadhipah na chaiva na bhavishyamah sarve vayamatah param. So Anvaya is aham jatu na asam. You can put in the bracket iti if you want. Tvam, then the same thing is repeated. Jatu na asihi iti. Na ime janadipaha, again repeat jatu na asan iti. Na natu eva. Vayam sarve ataf param cha na bhavishyamaha iti na eva. Little complicated the Anvaya for this sloka because he has Jatunasam once he has used in the sloka, but that needs to be understood along with all other clauses also in the sloka. That's why. So aham jatuna asam. Jatu means past. Aham jatuna asam. I was not there in the past. Tvam na. You were not. When we add jatu na asihi, means it is Sanskrit students will know. Asam, Asi, Asan, right? So you were not there in the past. Ime Janadipaha, na. Na ime Janadipaha. These kings, Janadipaha means kings. They were not there in the past. Again, we can bring this Jatunasam. So these kings were not there in the past. Natu eva means what? All these understandings, all these beliefs that I was not there in the past, you are not there in the past, these kings were not there in the past. Natu eva. It is not at all true. Such an idea is not at all true. Vayam sarve, all of us, ataf param, in the future, na bhavishyamaha, will not exist. Cha na eva, this is also not true. So what Bhagavan Krishna is now telling, a very, very important aspect that we need to understand from the Vedanta point of view. I was not there in the past, you were not there, these kings were not there. Such an idea is not at all true. And that all of us will not exist in the future, that idea is also not true. So in the previous sloka, Krishna condensed the Gita Shastram. Now onwards, he is going to elaborate. As we used to see, old days, I don't know these days what happens, I don't hear the news. So first they will read the headlines. Then they will say, now the news in detail. And 15 minutes or whatever it is, they will read the each point in the headline, they will elaborate rather. Similarly, now onwards, Krishna is going to elaborate. So what is Krishna's ultimate aim? We should understand that. His ultimate aim is that he should persuade Arjuna to fight this Mahabharata war. Because that is the immediate problem. Even though he has to solve the life's problem of samsara, there is an immediate problem also whether to fight this battle or not. And that is what Arjuna told Krishna. I don't know, I am confused whether to fight or not. So that is why Pujya Swamiji uses two words, topical or incidental problem, and another is fundamental problem. Arjuna is facing an incidental problem, whether to fight or not. Because it is incidental, because this problem is not there all the time. Previously, he has fought so many battles. He never had this conflict. And not only that, this problem is not universal also. For example, we do not have a problem of whether to fight a battle or not, isn't it? We don't belong to any army or anything. Of course, it's a different matter. Within the family, we may have a lot of fights, and that time we will have a incidental problem whether to fight or not to fight. But that's a different thing. So for Arjuna, it is a Kshatriya problem. The Kshatriya problem is Kshatriya Dharma problem. That is incidental. And this incidental problem triggers a deeper problem. And that what is the deeper problem? That is the problem of attachment and sorrow. And this attachment and sorrow, they are not incidental, but they are eternal problems. Not only they are eternal, they are universal problem also. So one is an incidental and another is fundamental. Krishna has to solve both the problems of Arjuna, and to solve this problem, Krishna is taking 3 lines of discussion, a 3-pronged attack to make Arjuna fight this war. And what that 3-pronged attack or the 3 lines of discussion, we will see in the next class. Okay. I will say the prayers now. Om Purnamadav Purnamidham Purnat Purnamudachyate पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरिः ओम। श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओम। Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Guruji.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Guruji.
Namaskaram.
Thank you very much, Guruji. That's for a wonderful section. Thank you very much.
ధన్యవాదాలు గురుజీ. థ్యాంక్ యూ.
Namaskaram, Guruji.
Namaskaram.
Thank you, Mama.
Thank you.
థ్యాంక్ యూ గురుజీ. థ్యాంక్ యూ వెరీ మచ్.
Thank you, Guruji.
I'll call you later, the class.
Thank you, Guruji.
Thank you. Hari Om.
Namaste, Guruji.
Namaste. Yes, Hari. One hand is up. Yes, questions now. Hariji.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Guruji, I have my old question which I
Which is that?
asked you once. Why is it that the chapter 1 is called Arjuna Vishada Yoga? Why that word yoga is given for the first chapter?
Okay,
I have been
ask a counter. Sorry, go ahead.
I had asked this question. You may be remembering.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, I have been pondering, but I'm still because all chapters from chapter 11th words of chapter 2 till 18, Krishna is showing us ways and means for us to get united with the self. That he is helping us, showing the path to evolve. Whereas in chapter 1, it is quite diametrically opposite. Those are things which we are not supposed to do or have. It is not going to help us to unite. The word yoga is derived from yuj, that is to unite.
What is your
Don't get
No, what is your understanding of the word yoga? What is the meaning of this word yoga?
yoga is to unite.
That is one meaning.
Yeah.
In Sanskrit, words have
Yeah.
got different meanings.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you observe every chapter, all
Yeah.
the 18 chapter, every chapter is called a yoga.
Yeah.
Correct?
Okay.
Now there is a chapter called Purushottama Yoga. So you can say it is
Yeah.
Purushottama. Okay. Then there is also a chapter which is called there's so many chapters, right? Which example I will quote? Yeah, what is that? Gunatraya.
Kshetra Kshetra.
There is a chapter, Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
every chapter is called yoga, yoga, yoga. So Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga, are we to understand that it is uniting with Gunatraya? If we take the meaning of yoga as yuj dhatu, to unite, it won't make sense, isn't it? Like exactly what you are saying, Arjuna Vishada Yoga doesn't make any sense. Because what we have trapped ourselves is, we have got a certain idea about this word yoga, a certain meaning, which is correct, which is not incorrect, but we fail to acknowledge the fact that in Sanskrit, words have got different meanings. If you look up at the Sanskrit dictionary, the word yoga has got a meaning of topic or subject. Look up a Sanskrit dictionary.
No, I'm okay.
So,
I'm not challenging.
No. What I'm just telling to give you an answer so that it becomes clear to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah,
Ask
that
this
is,
question
thank
again.
you.
So the
Yeah,
word
yeah.
yoga has got a meaning of a topic or a subject. And it is in that meaning that the word yoga is used at the end of each chapter of Bhagavad Gita.
Okay.
The word karma yoga, the word when we say yoga in karma yoga, is not the same meaning as we use that karma yoga in Bhagavad Gita. Their karma yoga is a sadhana. When in the 3rd chapter it is called karma yoga, means the topic of karma. So we have to understand that this word yoga has got different meanings. We know about one meaning because that is the most popular meaning rather. But if we know Sanskrit, the yoga has got a meaning of topic also. So that is how we have to understand Arjuna Vishada Yoga, means the topic of Arjuna's grief, Arjuna's sorrow. That is the topic of the first one. Sankhya Yoga means the topic of enumerating, as I explained in one of the classes earlier, what this Sankhya is. What is the meaning of the word Sankhya in the context of the title of the 2nd chapter, Sankhya Yoga. So we have to take in every chapter, the meaning is topic of this, topic of that. Not yoga in the sense of to unite. That is the answer for this.
Okay.
Okay. Are you? Yes, Anjali ji. What was it?
Namaste, Guruji. Yeah. While telling about this first shloka, 11th shloka, you were telling that ignorance, it cannot be removed. Any kind of karma cannot be removed, ignorance.
Yes.
So I'm getting confused. It's my own confusion. What is then karma yoga? How should we define karma yoga? Or what is the final aim of karma yoga?
Yeah. See, for removing ignorance, one of the basic requirements is that you must be able to, or you must be fit enough. You must acquire the qualification for gaining the knowledge, for removal of ignorance. Because for anything that we see, for example, you have to get a medical seat, apply for a medical seat. You have to gain knowledge to appear for an examination and then pass that whatever pre-medical test and all, then only you will get a medical seat. Now that there's so much of NEET and all, NEET and all, so many controversies going on. Or anything for that matter, if you want to go for engineering and all, there is a certain basic qualification which is required.
Yeah.
In terms of spiritual journey, what is that qualification? That qualification is what is called Chitta Shuddhi. Chitta Shuddhi, making your mind, your intellect more and more pure, because it has now got lot of impurities. Lot of impurities in terms of raga, dvesha, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya. All these impurities are there in our antakarana, in our mind or in our intellect. This first has to be removed. As long as these are there, the jnanam will not come at all. So for us to gain the Chitta Shuddhi, Karma Yoga is a sadhana. It is a course you have to do. And it is not a 2-year course, 1-year course and all that. It could be a lifelong course also for some people. Karma Yoga is a sadhana. The basis of Karma Yoga is what? Ishwararpana Buddhi and Ishwara Prasada Buddhi. And when we talk of gaining that qualification or fitness for jnanam, and as I said, it is Chitta Shuddhi we have to gain. In other words, what it means that we have to dilute our ego to a very large extent. Because if you look at it, the impurities are all there because of our ego. So when we do karma yoga, when we practice karma yoga as a sadhana, our attitude of whenever we do anything in our life, we offer it to Bhagavan, Ishvara Arpana Buddhi. And whatever we get in turn for our action, we accept whatever we get, whatever result comes, whether it is expected results or unexpected results, more than expected, less than expected, whatever we get, we accept it with the Ishvara Prasada Buddhi, like we go to a temple and accept whatever prasadam they give. The priest may even sometimes give you prasadam only one small spoon of water with some tulsi, maybe tulsi water. That also we take as prasada and accept it and then sip it, isn't it? That attitude, developing that attitude, karma yoga helps in developing that attitude. And unless you have got that attitude, all this jnana yogam we are talking about, it'll all be a waste. You may listen to any number of talks, any number of gurus you can go. It will not enter unless you have attained sufficient degree of chitta shuddhi. So karma yoga will not directly deliver moksha. It will not directly remove ignorance. But what karma yoga will do is they will prepare you, prepare your mind to receive that knowledge which will remove the ignorance. Have I made myself clear?
Yeah. Okay, sir. Thank you, Guruji. Yes.
All karmas do the same thing only. All like karmas means I'm not talking about laukika karmas. All Vaidika karmas like Vishnu Sahasranamam chanting, Lalita Sahasranamam chanting, whatever karmas we do, it's all removing that purpose is that only, achieving that purpose. Okay. Thank you.
And thank you.
Sumeka ji.
Thank you, Guruji. And thank you for that explanation. My question is on the question of knowledge. How does knowledge enter our being and become part of us? You've talked about Chitta Shuddhi quite a bit, and it is a great preparation means. How does knowledge become part of us so that it's not just book knowledge and words? Is it through Mananam, Shravanam, and Nidhyasana?
That is the final one. Nididhyasanam is the final one, the final sadhana, because we must understand knowledge for us to accept and enter our intellect. First of all, precondition is the knowledge should be doubtless knowledge. As long as we have certain doubts about that knowledge, we will never be convinced that that is correct, isn't it? So we must first, even though we might have done Shravanam for years together. We have read all the Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Sutra, everything that we have read. Unless we get convinced that what is being talked about in the Vedas, in the Upanishads, in the Brahma Sutra is the correct knowledge, that knowledge will never enter our mind. That is why the stage of Mananam is very important after Shravanam. Mananam is a stage where for some people, they get convinced easily. Even having Shraddha in the scriptures may convince a person that, okay, this is being said, I have no doubt about it. Because it is being said by scriptures, I have no doubt that must be the reality, I will accept it. No problem at all. But there are people who will be skeptical. Why should the scripture say this? Okay, Adi Shankara has said this, but Ramanujacharya says something else. Madhvacharya is saying something else. Which one of them is true? There you will need to go a little deeper into what each one is saying, and analyze them and apply your logic, your reasoning, and find out which of the three is actually logically also makes sense, and from the point of view of Shastras also makes sense. So this is the important stage of Manana. After you do that, once you have gained a doubt-free knowledge, still there is one very big obstacle. That knowledge which you have gained will contradict your daily day-to-day experience. Because that knowledge says that you don't have a form, that you are Brahman, isn't it? You are Ishvara, you are no different from that. But it will say you are limitless, that knowledge. But what is happening? We have been taking ourselves as a limited being day in and day out. Not only in this Janma, from Janma after Janma after Janma, we have been identifying ourselves with this body, mind, sense complex. So I am Ganapathy, I am a man, I am married to so and so and so, I am a teacher, I have done this, I am a guru. All these identifications which all either our physical body, mind complex or the roles that we perform, that identification is so strong that whatever knowledge comes, this will refuse to accept it or refuse to abide in that knowledge. Our intellect will not accept it. It takes practice. So Nididhyasanam or Vedantic meditation is the answer to that. So we have to bring all this knowledge, the doubtless knowledge that we have gained into our mind repeatedly. And then finally, when we are very clear that we have actually disidentified ourselves from this and identified ourselves with the knowledge that we have gained, that is the stage of moksha. That is how it is. The whole process. It may take a few years for some people, or a few janmas for some people also. We can never say. It all depends upon. And for all these things, mind you, lot of Ishvara's grace is required. And how do we earn Ishvara's grace? We earn Ishvara's grace only by the punya currency. From a point of view of Vyavaharika reality. That is ephemeral reality, existential reality. Ishvara's grace is required. So that is how the whole process works. Yeah, what is your supplementary question?
Thank you. My supplementary question is then around at the later stages of Nidhyasana, and that future stages, I should say, does one then have to start unconditioning oneself out of all of these identifications, how to remove oneself from I am this, I am that, I am this role. I am thinking a previous talk, you also talked about our role maybe as an actor. So to slowly start to disengage ourselves while still being engaged in the world that we live in, so that we're not seen as some type of recluse or weirdo, sorry for that word, but that we don't have that we are still engaged with our responsibilities in the world, but that we keep a distance, a moat through love and compassion for everything that happens. So it becomes like a screen, like we are watching a movie, but that we are watching ourselves, or something is watching through us, this medium that we are, and that the medium itself starts to become cleaner or more translucent, to have that boundless or limitlessness reflected through us. Is that a correct approach?
Of course, we did not use very, I would say, very serious words. It's disidentification and identification is the process, to put it very simple, right? And now Nididhyasanam again does not necessarily mean that you must sit with closed eyes in one place and then keep recalling the knowledge. What I am doing now, teaching you all Bhagavad Gita and all this, is Nididhyasanam only. I am bringing to my mind the doubtless knowledge that I have gained again and again and again by repeating it. And by that process, I am gaining more and more disidentification with what I took myself to be earlier and what I now understand myself to be. So Nididhyasanam is not necessarily a process that you lock yourself in a room and then do that. If it helps you to do that, well and fine. But you have to, it is a living kind of a thing. And the best example in Shastra gives is you must become like a drop of water on a lotus leaf. When you actually look at the drop of water on a lotus leaf or in lotus petal also rather for that matter, the water will appear for all of us to be on the lotus leaf, but actually speaking, the water will not be attached to that leaf at all. It will not wet that leaf at all. It will actually go around. You can actually take it and move it around. You know, it doesn't actually go and drench the lotus leaf. That's the example. Be like the water on the lotus leaf. For all appearances, you are part of that lotus leaf. You are part of this world. You are sitting in this world. But your own mental condition is that you are detached. Appearing to be attached, you are detached. And that only you know. Others need not know that. So the entire spiritual path, this journey is all about yourself. Nothing to do with to prove to others. I am a big guru, I want to prove to others and all. If the person says that, that means that he is still in a samsara. He is still attributing certain values, superimposing certain values of gurudom, and so he is still in samsara only. He has not attained moksha. So the process is like that. So as I said, Nididhyasanam is a process. It could take a very long time rather, because it is not easy to disidentify. I mean, today, even tomorrow, for example, somebody comes and tell me that from tomorrow onwards, you are not going to be called Ganapathy. You are going to be called Sulekha. Suppose somebody says. Then next day morning when I wake up, somebody calls Sulekha, will I answer? I won't. Because I've been used to be called Ganapathy, Ganapathy only. I will answer only to Ganapathy only. I will never answer to Sulekha. Sulekha means I will look around who is Sulekha. That fellow will say, yesterday only I told you that you are Sulekha from today onwards. It will not sink in my mind that easily. So this identification with our body, mind, sense complex is so strong. Suddenly you say, Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, oh, very good, I am Tattvamasi, is not going to happen. So you have to practice. That is what the whole spiritual journey is about. And we have to monitor our progress. We have to monitor daily basis what progress we are making. It is not that overnight it will happen. And this is what happens with many Vedanta students, even serious students. You go to the ashram. I face this problem with my family also. It is not that, oh, because you have learned all these things, you have become a Vedantin and you have become moksha and all that. Nothing like that. It takes time. But what they do, suppose we get angry, oh, you are going to the ashram and still anger has not left you. So you are still, there's no use of your going to that. This is how they try to discourage you from all these things. You must start by learning to ignore all of them rather. And then continue in your path and guaranteed it will give result. Because Shastras will never ever talk anything which is not truth. Satyam, they will talk. So it will give result. You must have patience, you must have perseverance, you must go on this line. And then what I taught today, Ashochyan, that the Panditahana Anushochanti, that slowly we must, that sink in. I should not worry about what is there now or later or whatever it is, what is gone. What is gone is gone. What is going to go will go. Everything in this world is ephemeral. They will come, they will go. Why to grieve over that? Nothing to grieve over that. So all these, it's a whole process. It's a lifelong process.
Thank you, Guruji. Beautiful. Thank you.
Yes, Premaji.
Guruji,
Yes,
can we?
Swamiji.
Premaji, this is associated with.
Yes. Let Hariji, then I'll come to you, Premaji. Yeah.
Can we say this is objectivity, that you play your role and
Objectivity.
get out?
Objectivity is a
And-
part. That's how you achieve, rather. I mean, in terms of what your attitude is, be objective. It's true.
You play your role and get out of the state.
Get out means what? Objectivity means also see your body, mind, sense complex objectively. The limitations of the body, mind, sense complex also take it objectively. If it is your body, it will have problems. No point in crying about it. Oh, my leg is aching, my knee is paining, my back is paining. No point in crying about it. You have to accept it. Oh, this is what it is. It will be like this. I am getting old. I am not in the same, 20s and 30s kind of a thing. This is the dharma of my Sharira dharma. It will happen. I have to go through six, that, Shat Vikaras is there. So there's no point in, that is objectivity. Once I understand, okay, I am now 60, I am 70, these problems will come. If I don't get this problem, well and good. I don't need to be feel proud I don't have the problem and all that. If I got diabetes, yes, that will come. I have to accept it, learn to live with it, keep it under check, do whatever is required to be done to manage it, but I can't get rid of it, isn't it? So this is all objectivity, and that is how we will have to slowly get first accept and then disassociate. That is the beautiful process, rather.
Thank you, Akka.
Thank you, Hari. Premaji.
Thank you.
Guruji, my questions are three-part. Number one, when I heard effort and grace, I hope I have understood that punya is for chitta shuddhi, and the real effort is to make myself eligible to get that knowledge and thereby liberate myself from the confines of the body-mind complex. Huh? The second part is, Siliki, are you there or have you gone?
She's there.
She's there, Silika?
Yeah,
I am
she's
here.
there. Yeah, I can see her.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Siliki, this is with reference to your question last time, saying mental aberration versus the state of Ajnani, which our Guruji today explained extremely well. One is an aberration. We are the aberrants because we are the ones that are not aligned in thought, word, and deed. So all these discrepancies creep up and we go into more and more ignorance, right? So today when you said weirdo, we are the weirdos. The person who is a jnani has not only erased the sanchita karma, he is only working out his prarabdha. And because he has no projections, no desires, no wants, he's not making any agami karma, which is for the future. And he has no desires or wants. So all he uses is his faculties as a pure instrument in the order of God. Okay, so whereas the others are erasing the impressions left from years and lives of karma, and also in this present life also, but they are the ones who don't have to do anything and yet leave nothing undone. Okay, so I wanted to, the question is, she had asked the question that is it about the split personality or multiple personalities? So I was saying that we are split and multiple because of non-alignment of the thought, word, and deed.
Yeah.
And whereas a jnani, there is nothing there. I mean, he is free from that. Correct. So today she was talking about, is it just a projection that is weird? But we are impressions of time and many past lifetimes and so on and so forth. So I just wanted that. And the third one I wanted to ask you was, Satchidananda Rupaya Vishwotpatyadi Hetave Tapatraya Vinashaya Sri Krishnaya Vayam Numaha. Correct? So here he is removing the tapatrayas. That gives us Chitta Shuddhi. But my confusion there was until you told me that it was punya is not enough for moksha. And your explanations about the density of karma preventing, the density of karma sometimes is a chemical imbalance in your body. It could be blaming of others, making them responsible for what you are suffering, etc. But it is again a complex of cleansing activities going on, whether you know it or not, and giving you Chitta Shuddhi, which is the punya we gain. Through the punyas, we gain Chitta Shuddhi. Through listening to gurus like you, we first of all develop a desire for wanting something that is worthwhile and tools to access it.
Yeah, but
So-
what I want to clarify here is, see, Chitta Shuddhi is gained by Karma Yoga. Now, what does
It's
the
not-
punya do? Because Karma Yoga does not give rise to any punya. Karmas give rise to punya, but Karma Yoga does not give rise to punya. Karma Yoga gives rise to Chitta Shuddhi. Okay, so we must understand the difference between what is karma and what is Karma Yoga. So dharmic karmas which we do, satkarmas that we do, they give rise to punya. What is the role of this punya in doing, in gaining this Chitta Shuddhi is that when we are engaged in Karma Yoga, we could be confronted with so many obstacles in gaining Chitta Shuddhi through Karma Yoga. The punya role will be to remove those obstacles so that we can continue in the journey of Karma Yoga. That is why you require the punya. You don't require punya for Chitta Shuddhi. You require punya as an insurance policy for you to make sure that you are in the spiritual path, and it is not only for gaining Chitta Shuddhi, punya is also required. And by punya, what are we saying? We are simply saying Ishwara's grace. Because Ishwara's grace will be there only through the punya, the results of that punya karmas. Right? So that is the currency which we have to earn and deposit with Ishwara's bank. And which, depending on circumstances, he will release, so that it will, our journey will be without any obstacles. We will not be obstructed in our journey. That is the role of punya, and that is what we call Ishwara's grace. So when you look at it holistically, everything is a part of the entire journey. We cannot say spiritual journey means only Vedanta and all. Krishna will talk about all these things. I mean, when we see chapter, he so beautifully, unfolds all these ideas in chapter after chapter after chapter. So when we are talking about spiritual path, everything, even karma, is a part of the spiritual path, because that is where we earn punya, and that is where we earn the Ishwara's grace for removal of obstacles. So like that, we can go into it in a very deep way. But the thing is, it is so vast that we should take it chapter by chapter along with Guru, our Guru, Lord Krishna. We must learn this entire thing.
So it is the punya that from good deeds and everything else that prepares us to surrender and offer Ishvara Arpana Buddhi, and also to accept everything as Prasada Buddhi.
Yes.
So one is the byproduct or the result of the punya karma is.
Karma phala only, the result of punya and papa only we experience, isn't it, in prarabdha karma.
Right.
So if you have to come to a Bhagavad Gita class, or if you have to take up this pursuit of spirituality and gaining this knowledge, that itself requires so much of punya karma. Where everybody does it. Even if you force a person to come to this class, if it is not backed by that, he will that the karmas will create some obstacle that he will stop coming to the class. So right from the time that we are born as a human beings, in the yoni only this knowledge can be gained. Punya karmas are required. We have been born as a human being. That itself is a very big punya karma. Right? That's why you know that in Viveka Chudamani, those three things that Bhagavan Shankara talks about, Adi Shankara talks about. Manushyatvam, Mumukshutvam, and what is that? Mahapurusha Samsraya. These three things is done only by Bhagavan's grace, which is nothing but the punyas that we have earned in the past janmas. So we have to continue the process of earning that punyas in this janma also. We cannot suddenly switch over, okay, I have now come to Bhagavan's grace has brought me to spirituality. Now I will start doing all sorts of adharmic karmas. That will not work. We have to keep on renewing those insurance policies again and again and again. Through each and every karma, thoughtfully we should do. Whether this is dharmic, this is adharmic. Even while speaking, it should reach that stage. Whenever a word comes out of our mouth, we must be conscious that what we are saying is dharmic or adharmic. If what I am saying is going to hurt somebody, adharmic. It's very difficult. I mean, it's not very easy, but unless you practice it, you will never reach it. So the punya has got its own role to play in this entire thing. That should continue. Eventually, when you become a jnani, you will understand all this was mithya. There was no punya, no papa, nothing, no karma, no sanchita karma, prarabdha karma. All this is all, nothing is there. The only reality is aham brahmasmi. That is the top stage. You need that. But during that, we cannot now itself say that everything is mithya. We have to for us, it is actually reality. So we have to accept it as reality and continue in the path. That's how it is.
Guruji, what does Vishwa, what did I say? Sachidananda Rupaya, Vishwot, what is I forgot now? Vishwot, wait a minute. It's Sachidananda Rupaya, Vishwotpatyadi Hetave. So Vishwotpatyadi Hetave is what?
Vishwa Utpatyadi Hetave. Hetave means cause. Cause for this entire creation. Both Nimitta Karana and Upadana Karana for this entire creation. So Sachidananda Rupaya, it's all, it's like a Sambodhana kind of a thing. To you, sorry, not this fourth case, Sachidananda Rupaya. To you, the Sachidananda, who is the nature is Sachidananda. Vishnur Utpatti Hetave, who is the cause for this entire universe. Then what is the other word?
Tapatraya Vinashaya.
Tapatraya Vinashaya, who is the one by removing what is Tapatrayam, Adhyatmika, Adi Bhautika, and Adi Daivika Tapas. These are the Tapatrayam, who by giving us the results of our own karma phalas, our own punyas, who are able to remove this Tapatrayam, which act as obstacles in my spiritual path. This Adi Daivika, because in Vishnu Sahasranam, Puja Swamiji keeps on talking about Adi Bhautika aspect, Adi Daivika aspect and all. Because this Tapatrayam itself is a very big chapter rather in our scriptures. So this Tapatrayam will keep on causing obstacles after obstacles. Because even Adi Daivika, it seems that many of the Devatas, they don't have self-knowledge. Right? So whenever somebody is going for self-knowledge, even Devatas, they put obstacles in that person's, path, spiritual path. They are jealous of this person. That, oh, see, he is a Manushya, I am a Devata. I don't have this self-knowledge. And this fellow has started going around and to gurus and all and getting self-knowledge. So they will create obstacles. So that is also the Adi Daivika Tapas. So all these tapas will be removed only by Ishvara. So that is why we pray to that Ishvara. That is the meaning of that sloka.
Yeah, Numaha comes from Namostu.
It is Numaha or Namaha?
It says Numaha because it says Vayam us. So I thought I know how the clock, I can tell time, but I don't know how the clock works. So in the Sanskrit grammar, you'll be able to tell me better.
So Namaha,
Vayam Numaha.
Vayam Namaha only will come. I don't know whether I will have to check it up. Numaha usage, if it is there, I will have to check it up. Otherwise, Aham Namami, then Vayam Nama.
This is Vayam?
Namamaha will come.
Namamaha. It should
Namamaha.
be not Numaha.
Numaha I have not come across. I will have to check whether there is such a usage is there, or it could be a printing mistake. Instead of Namaha, Numaha might have been there. Quite possible.
It could very well possibly be.
Yeah. So let me check it up and let you know whether Numaha usage is there or not. That is the thing.
Thank you, Guruji, for your patience.
Thank you. No problem. Yes, who is Premaji has raised her hand. Let me answer.
Yes, I was talking to you
Achha,
all
you
this
were
time.
only raised hand. Okay, finished. Okay. Any more questions? I thought there was another Prema. I thought, okay, my mistake. Yeah. So, no more questions means we can close the session. Okay. Right.
Thank you, Guruji.
Thank you very much.
Hari Om.
It's Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hari Om.